So in this video, let's talk a little bit about differentiation and positioning, which is a big part of STP, segmenting, targeting, and positioning. So once you have segmented the market and decided what targeting strategies you are going to use, please watch my other videos talking about segmentation and targeting. It is time now to figure out the positioning strategy for your company and for your product. Positioning, as the name suggests, is an attempt by the brand to occupy a distinct position in the consumer's mind. Like now, how will you occupy a distinct position that is different from your competitor's position in the consumer's mind? That is by creating differentiation between you and your competitors in some way. For an example, let's talk a little bit about handbags. So when you think about Prada, you immediately think of a product that is expensive, which is fashionable, that generally translates into a luxury brand. However, when you think about a brand like Liz Claiborne, that are generally cheaper, have a decent price, and do the job that you want them to do, that translates into more of a utility handbag. Now, these position in your mind has been created by marketers through many years using different marketing strategies. For example, their pricing strategy, Prada handbags are more expensive than Liz Claiborne handbags. And also, Liz Claiborne handbags can be bought in cheaper retail stores like JCPenney compared to Prada handbag, which might be distributed using their own specific retailers or high-end distribution systems, right? So because these two brands have differentiated their brands from each other, they occupy different positions in the consumer's mind. This distinction is important because if the consumers does not perceive there to be any difference, then why would they choose one brand over the other? So if you want a fashionable, expensive brand, you immediately think of Prada or Gucci or other high-end retail brands, while if you want a cheaper handbag, you never think about those brands. Right? So even though both Prada and Liz Claiborne are selling the same product, they are not necessarily competing with each other because they occupy a different position and a distinct position in the consumer's mind. Let's think about another example about two car manufacturers, Toyota and Ford. Like when comparing Japanese car manufacturers with American car manufacturers, there might be a perception in the general consumer's mind that the Japanese car manufacturer like Toyota are more reliable than Ford. So if reliability were a factor, then the consumer would choose a product that is Toyota over Ford. Now consider Toyota versus Honda. Both are Japanese car manufacturer and both are considered to be equally reliable. Since there is no difference in the perception and the position that these brands occupy in terms of reliability, a consumer may decide to choose any of those brands. Now, if you are Toyota or Honda, you don't want this to happen. You want the consumers to choose your brand over your competitor's brand. So you might have to think of some other factor that differentiates your product from your competitor's product. So if you think about Toyota and Honda, then there might be a perception that Honda is more sporty while Toyota is more classic. Now this is a factor of differentiation. That means a person who wants a sportier car may choose Honda versus a person who wants a classier car may probably choose Toyota. Now if we think about the different positioning strategies that companies use, then there might be 1,000 ways for you to differentiate your product from your competitor's product and create different position in the consumer's mind. We'll just briefly discuss a few of those positioning strategies that a lot of different companies use. The first one of them is positioning based upon product attributes. So any attribute that a consumer thinks is important can be used as an attribute to differentiate your product from your competitor's product so that you occupy different positions in the consumer's mind. Thinking about automobiles, as we saw in our previous example, Toyota occupies a position of reliability. Ford occupies a position of American. Porsche occupies a position of performance, whereas Volvo, we all know, occupies a position of safety, right? So we can use different positioning, so we can use different attributes as a way to position the product differently in the market. Now let's think about positioning in a different way. So positioning based upon pricing. A lot of companies who sell cheap products, or in some cases, some companies who sell expensive product want to position their product based upon prices. So Walmart positions itself as a low cost provider for products, right? So Walmart is a place where you can buy products that are very low in prices. Similarly, some retailer might want to project themselves as high-end retailers. In that case, they will use price as a way to differentiate themselves from their competitors, right? So price-based differentiation is again another popular way of differentiating your product from your competitor's product. Now, another way to position your product is based upon your competitors. Some companies may decide to position their brand directly against the competitors. So if you've seen a lot of T-Mobile advertisements, you will see that all their advertisements, they generally compare themselves against AT&T or Verizon. So this is an attempt by T-Mobile to position themselves directly against their competitors. A very, very famous example of positioning against the competitors was used by Avis in the 1970s and 80s when they were the number 2 car rental company in the United States, and Hertz was the number 1 car rental company in the United States. So they created an advertisement campaign where they said, we are number 2, that's why we try harder, to try to position themselves against their competitors. Now this advertisement strategy was very, very successful for Avis. So a positioning strategy is a way for a company to occupy a specific position in the consumer's mind. Now, the companies do this because they want to create a differentiation between their product, their brand, and the competitor's product and their brand. So that when a consumer wants to buy a specific product, they know what the brand has to offer and will buy the product that they think provides the most value for them. Now, let's talk a little bit about a tool a lot of companies use to figure out what position their brand occupies in the consumer's mind. Now, this is called a perceptual map, and to understand how we create perceptual map, let's take a look at another video. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope you learned a lot about positioning in this particular video. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thank you very much for watching.